So, Chris Wyle, welcome to the Disenfranchised. How are you doing today?
Great, thanks, Ed. Thanks for having me on.
Good. Well, it's a real pleasure to have you here with us today, and thank you for sharing your time with us. I know you're a busy man, and you've got plenty to be getting on with in your days. So let's get cracking straight away and start off by finding out what was your first job.
Oh, well, my very first job was working for a company called All Sports. So that's going back, I don't know, probably nearly 30 years. They were a sports retailer selling trainers and various bits of sports equipment, a little bit like Sports Direct today. And I remember that my job was to run up and down the stairs of the store in West Bromwich, finding people trainers to try on.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Get me entertained on Saturdays.
Yeah, it's funny. I did that for a brand called Donne years ago. I needed it for a couple of months while I was trying to find my way out of one of my first jobs. And I just remember that there was that was kind of the luxury job. You know, you didn't have to deal with the customers necessarily. You didn't have to clean after them. You could be in the stock room and be sort of self-sufficient. But I remember one guy I was working with, he actually hid behind the shoes. You know, he pulled all the shoes forwards from the shelves and hid behind them, so he didn't have to do any work for a lot of the day.
Yeah.
Hopefully you weren't like that.
No, let's be clear. I was the runner, so I wasn't hiding in the stock room. I was running up and down the stairs with the shoes all day long.
Brilliant. And how long were you doing that for?
Oh, probably 12 months or so.
Yeah. Okay. And I take it that wasn't the dream job. That was something to get some money coming through and get some work experience, I guess.
Yeah, that's all it was. And then my first proper job, if you like, actually, I started on a youth training scheme. And I started with West Bromwich Building Society, and I worked in their training department as an administrator. I suppose that's where my passion for training and development started, if you like. That was where the fuse was lit. And I did that for 6 months or so on a youth training scheme. And then I was taken on permanently as part of their branch network staff. So I worked effectively as a cashier in the Building Society. And that was the beginning of my financial services career.
Fantastic. So where did that career take you then?
It took me to a regional manager level. So I was looking after, I worked for various financial services brands, West Bromwich Building Society, Derbyshire Building Society, Cheshire Building Society, and then those were taken over by the Nationwide. And so as a regional manager, I would have a cluster of branches and 100 or so staff.
Yeah, cool. So I guess that's a pretty typical career path for someone in that banking world, right? So,
yeah, for sure.
So did your career change much over that time in terms of your responsibilities and your tasks? So obviously, there's a certain amount, but did you kind of notice it, or was it kind of just gradual increments?
Yeah, I guess it feels very different to to get into that first managerial position whereby others are looking to you for guidance and support and encouragement and coaching. Feels very different to be the one who's sat on the counter engaging with customers all day long. To somebody who will do that sometimes, but then has other roles and responsibilities in the job. And then, of course, when you become an area or regional manager, you're not even in the same branch all of the time. You're on the road, you're visiting different branches each day and having different relationships with of course, your branch teams, but then more so with people at head office and around the business as well.
Sure.
So, yeah, it does change.
And did that involve some training in that role as well? You said you had your passion for training was lit from that first role. Did it still incorporate that in that career?
Yeah, for sure. I've always been somebody who's had a tight relationship, if you like, with our various training departments at the various building societies I've worked for, and I've engaged in training and development with colleagues and team members all the way through. Because we've got to improve, we've got to get better. There's always opportunity to explore, to grow, to develop, and I'm a big believer in that.
Sure.
So it was always something that was on the agenda.
Cool. And so I know from looking at your profile that after you were area manager, you then moved into owning your own business ultimately. Yeah. Through Pitman Training. So I wanted to find out kind of what led you to do that and why take that leap, because if you still had that kind of training element in there, why take the next step and own your own business?
Yeah, sure. I'd always wanted to. So I'd always wanted to be self-employed, always wanted to be the captain of my own ship, so to speak, and to steer my own business. It was another passion of mine, and what the Pitman opportunity, which is my first business working for myself in the world of training, what that gave me was the opportunity to bring together those two passions, working for myself and working in the area of training and development.
Cool. So how easy was that transition for you in terms of both financially, but also in terms of that those kind of changes in responsibilities?
Oh, it was a bit tricky. You really got to have a passion to want to work for yourself, to take that first step. And so here's how it went with me. I left the Nationwide Building Society when I was 33, something like that.
Okay.
As my first son was born. And so I took that year off. And so my wife and I had a year off with our firstborn, Max, and that was wonderful. I know not many dads get to do that, and perhaps not enough mums get to do that. But we had that year off, and during that year, I was looking for opportunities. And I had a colleague, somebody from West Bromwich Building Society, actually, who was running a couple of Pitman training centres in Shrewsbury and Telford. And he was looking to move on. You know, his career was taking him in other directions. And I began to talk with him about the Pitman training opportunity. I liked what I heard, I liked what I saw, loved the products, absolutely brilliant, loved the support, and the idea of how we could grow the business. And it was part of those discussions, or through those discussions, that I met Yowie, and Yowie was the franchise development manager at Pitman, and he introduced me to the idea that actually Birmingham was coming up for sale. And so then it was Shrewsbury and Telford or Birmingham. Now, Birmingham is what won the day. I thought it was a better opportunity for me. It was a little bit closer to home. And so I was able to acquire the Birmingham Centre for Pitman in 2013, September 2013. And then it was very, very different. So of course, I'm back to work after a year off, but then it's me. And very quickly it was me and a colleague. And it was a really interesting time for me, and a bit scary at times as well. So, my income dropped from whatever it was to 15% of what it used to be. And so that's a bit scary, to have your income drop so rapidly. But again, I knew where I was going, and I was confident I could get there. So there was a definite financial hit. But I'm very lucky to be supported by my wife as well, who was gainfully employed at that time. And there was, of course, a change in the way my days looked. So instead of being that area manager who would go around branches, engage with various teams of various sizes, it was just me. And then shortly afterwards, it was just one colleague.
Sure.
And I'm the one picking up the phone. It's like, 25 years earlier, I'm the one picking the phone up. I'm the one doing the customer appointments. I'm the one doing all of the work. That makes sense.
Yeah, I was going to say that must have been one of the biggest changes, because I think I saw you had about 100 colleagues working sort of for you within the area nationwide. So I assume there's people doing different elements of the business for you, like you say, booking in customer appointments and things like this, and going back to almost the beginning again. That must be quite challenging for your ego in some ways. I'm not saying you're necessarily egotistical or anything like that, but I imagine for people who are in that management position to kind of then go, right, now I'm at ground level, there's got to be kind of a psychological change or change in your mindset that you've got to say, right, now I'm going to get stuck in. How did you find that?
You just have to adapt, and you have to do what needs to be done. You see, my passion was to work for myself and to make a go of it. So it was never really, I'm not prepared to do this work. It was, this is what's necessary to meet the goal, to meet the objective. And I loved it. I loved getting stuck back in. You see, one of the things I've always said through my career, and I say it now, is I'll never ask anybody else to do anything I'm not prepared to do. And so doing and starting that way just really showed that, I can do it. It's possible, and now I can show others how to do it too. So it didn't rub me up the wrong way. It didn't offend my ego or anything like that. It's just what was needed that time, and I enjoyed doing it. I love meeting people, and one of the things that it enabled me to do was to have conversations with people from a variety of backgrounds, talk about where they are and how we're going to get them to where they want to be. And when we do that, and we get them to where they want to be, it's brilliant, absolutely brilliant, lights people up.
Yeah, that sounds really good. That sounds cool. So in terms of your day-to-day role then, were you involved in the training yourself, or were you did you employ tutors or trainers to do that under your
It's
business?
perhaps, yeah, it's perhaps a combination of a number of those things, Ed. You see, one of the brilliant things about Pitman is the quality of our training. So it's what we would call self-paced training in the main. So it's computer-based, self-paced, which means we can set somebody up on the training course and then they can carry on, and they have an audio guide to guide them through. They have a workbook to support them, and then they physically carry out the activity. It's tell, show, do. It's the best way to learn. My role in that was, of course, to provide them with the course in the first place, to the right course to match with their ambition. It was then to support them through it. So as opposed to saying, here's how you do this, here's how you create a VLOOKUP on Microsoft Excel, I would say, look, here's the exercise that you need to complete. If you get stuck, I'm here to help. So then I'd sit down next to them and say, right, let's have a look at the exercise together. That will be the teaching or the coaching element of it, if you like, as opposed to standing at the front and directing activities all day long.
Okay, so again, that's adding another challenge in those early days for you is, okay, you've got to run the business, but also do some of that sort of coaching and support as well, but quite varied and exciting. And I guess then that ties into what you were doing in your previous role anyway, right? It was a skill that you could transfer across. So
for sure.
In building out that business then, now some people listening to this might know it's a franchise, some might not, but Pitman Training is a franchise brand that's been around for a long time. So you brought one of the licenses within Birmingham. So what kind of support were you receiving to actually do all of those tasks?
Sure. Okay. So I already mentioned that Yowie, he was one of the franchise development managers at Pitman, and he was really good for me in my early days because he was a sounding board, a guide, if you like, somebody to say, look, here's how this business works. And he'd come along and meet and we'd chat and he would guide me through. So the support was there from the get-go. After the initial training, I never felt like I was on my own. You see, the great thing about franchising is you're in business for yourself, but not by yourself. Sure. And I never felt like I was by myself. There was always somebody to ask and somebody to help. There was a team of people in marketing, a team of people in customer support. There was Yowie, there were others, lots of others. And you could always get a question answered or get a hand if you needed it. I said to you, I started off on my own there in Pitman, in Birmingham, and shortly into my time there, I recruited my first colleague, and that was Julia. And she was great. She was a quick learner, and she was great to have around. But I found it so nerve-wracking, Ed.
Really?
You see, I've gone from a stage where I'm working for a large building society. Everything is pretty secure. You're going to get paid. Everybody else around you is going to get paid. You don't need to worry about things like that as long as you do a good job. Through to coming along and starting again effectively from scratch, and then recruiting a colleague. Now, I've done lots of recruitment in the past, but I've never had to pay them. Somebody else has always taken care of paying them. And now I've got this young lady, Julia, and I'm responsible for paying her. And let me tell you, she was working part-time, and it wasn't a significant amount of money, but it scared the life out of me, because that commitment to somebody else, that promise to pay somebody else at the end of the month, it just put another level of pressure on, if you like, which actually is a good thing. I think we all need a level of pressure to function, a level of pressure to get us out of bed and moving in the mornings, not too much. But it certainly created the right level for me. And it was a great support and enabled us to do the things that we needed to do in Birmingham to build that business. And so I was very grateful for her. And it was all part of the learning and the experience of building one's own business.
Yeah, sure. I've not really thought about that before, but I guess it's another dependent for you, isn't it? And yeah, if you don't feel like getting up in the morning one day and doing something, okay, that's going to impact you when you're on your own. But when you've got somebody else, that could mean, that you're unable to pay their salary or you become in more difficult financial debt. So yeah, I must have.
You absolutely hit the nail on the head. And today, Ed, we've got 25, 26 colleagues in our organization. And I don't find it anywhere near as scary as it was for me to recruit Julia back then on part-time hours and a very small amount of money. But I am very aware of my obligation. And I think about it like, it's not my responsibility on my own because I couldn't succeed without the team. But I think about it as an obligation to feed 25 families. That's one of the things that keeps me going.
Yeah, and that's pretty cool, because that's people in the local community that you're supporting and helping. And I think that's something that's really important to understand, that even a fairly big brand like Pitman, it's actually supporting local communities, isn't it? It's supporting, like you say, just in your team alone, 25 families, or 26 families. So yeah, it's quite nice to see. I guess in terms of your responsibilities, then they've altered throughout that time, and your organization of 25 people. Are you now just on that one brand, or have you increased the other sites that you have?
Yeah, so we've been on a little journey over the last few years. So having made a success of our Pitman Centre in Birmingham, which is still running, and we've got a wonderful team in there, we decided, I always say we, because I think about it like my wife and I and the extended team, but it's just me in terms of I'm the franchisee with Pitman. So I decided to open up in Leicester and Nottingham. And then shortly after that came Cardiff, Cambridge, Bishop Stortford and Clapham. Wow. And in fact, right now, just this month, we've opened up in Sheffield as well. So we're at 8 centres with Pitman. Now, having made a success of my Pitman career thus far, I started to get interested in what else might be available, what else might be out there, and talk to people at Launch Life. Now, Launch Life is an education giant. Launch Life acquired Pitman Training 2.5 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. And they already own a couple of brands in America. One is called Academy of Learning Career College, and they have Tuit, which is an online tutoring app. And they also had a brand called School is Easy. And in my conversations with Daryl, who's the chief exec owner of Launch Life, he selected me as the guy to run School is Easy in Great Britain. So I became the master franchisee for School is Easy in the middle of 2020.
Okay.
Great Britain being England, Wales, and Scotland, and then we set about how we can grow that business too. So no, I'm not just Pitman anymore. I'm there Pitman and School is Easy.
Yeah, wow, I mean, it seems like a massive amount to take on, but I guess those kind of incremental growth stages allow you to manage it and increase that team to help you to manage it. But I got a question kind of going back a little bit. So why choose those locations? I think you mentioned Nottingham and Leicester. What made you decide to choose those locations? So
it was that the opportunity was good. The territory sizes were good sizes for the business that we're in. In Pitman Training, I've been somebody who wants a good sized city centre territory with a mix of people, if you like, different demographics. And I felt we could really make a success in those locations. So that's why I picked.
Cool. And were their sites already set up and ready to go, or did you have to go out there and choose the location, choose the building, all of these things as well?
Oh yeah. So in Leicester and Nottingham, they were both greenfield sites. So it was a case of having to start from scratch. Yeah. So you're absolutely right. You go along, you meet landlords, you have a tour of different offices, you figure out which one's right for your business, and do negotiation on the lease, and you fit it out, and then you staff it up. So all of those things are tricky. Don't get me wrong, we've had our learnings along the way, but yeah, each time it was a fresh start. Cardiff, Cambridge, and Bishop Stortford were different, in that I acquired those from other franchisees, so they were established with team members in there. And I must admit that's a much easier way to go.
I was going to ask about finding the right location. Is that something that it was completely on you, or was it supported by the brands, the franchise?
Yeah, the brand support. The brand give guidance. This is the sort of location that we're looking for. This is the sort of size. This is the sort of look and feel. And then I would always, in agreement with Pitman, of course, have a particular area in mind. So for me, it would always be in the city centre. With our Pitman brand, that's the right place to be, I believe. And it would always be close to parking, rail services and bus services. I know it sounds obvious, but people have got to be able to get to you easily and get away from you easily. And then one of the things I often say to new franchises or people who are considering Pitman, when they ask me the question about location, where should I be? I'll tell them the things I've just told you, Ed. And then the final thing I say to them, imagine your wife or your daughter or a female friend is leaving the Pitman Train Centre at 8 o'clock at night in the winter. You want to be somewhere where you can be reasonably confident, very confident, that they're going to get to their car, their bus, their train safely, and without feeling, scared or afraid or like you've put them at the wrong end of town type of thing. So it's always important to think about who's going to be using your facility and how they're going to get to and from and when.
Yeah, sure, definitely. It makes a lot of sense, and perhaps something you don't think about on the face of it. Just find a location and people will turn up. But yeah, actually, that's really important. So, in terms of that face-to-face element, then is that something that's still taking place across 2020, 21? Obviously, a lot more restrictions in place. So I guess things changed a little bit for the training centres.
It was like a roller coaster, Ed. It was like a roller coaster. If you take our centre in Cardiff, I think we've got 40 odd student seats, and right up until the end of 2019, very early 2020, you'd have struggled to get a seat. We had a booking system, so students can reserve a PC for a period of time, and they would use it, and they would go, and somebody else would come along, and it was very busy. We'd be seeing 60, 70 different people a day, and then the pandemic hit and the lockdown came, and centre usage went bang straight down. Our centres we went into lockdown. Our centres were closed. And then we came out and went in again, and how it's gone. And we're starting to see numbers through this year. We've started to see numbers return. I don't think they've got back to pre-pandemic levels yet, and it's really interesting because we've adapted, and I think in business you have to adapt, and we've adapted to the situation of people not wanting to come back. Now, fortunately with Pitman, our products and services are great and we can deliver them anywhere. We do tend to find that people have a greater level of success when they come into the centre. So completion rates are higher, grades are higher when students come into the centre because we can physically help them in person. But we're really, really good at helping people virtually as well. So students can study virtually. So our enrolment numbers, in fact, our business levels are as high now as they've ever been. But our centres are coming back and getting busier all of the time.
That's interesting. So I guess it's almost added on another arm to what you can deliver, really, because I'm assuming you'd have had to focus more on that online piece and probably make that easier to use, perhaps, and more accessible to people, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost like Zoom became, I don't think it was quite the word of the year in 2020, but it was a word that entered people's vocabulary, or a piece of software that people didn't know about before. Some did, of course, but not the masses, if that makes sense. But now everybody knows what a Zoom call is. Everybody knows what a Teams call is, and we had to help to educate people in knowing what those things are, and then help our colleagues to understand how we can really use them well for our business, so that we can support our customers and anybody who's considering studying with Pitman. Cool.
So back to kind of you then, and taking on School is Easy as a master franchisee. It sounds like, well, it's pretty clear, I think, that you're very successful under the Pitman brand. You had 8 locations, you said, and a team that you built up. Why look to take on another project?
I think there's probably a number of answers to that. The first one is, I think the pandemic created what we're calling learning loss. And so there are a lot of young people now. When I say young people, ages 5 up to going to college and university, who have suffered, and we don't quite yet know how much they've suffered, but they've suffered learning loss. Because shutting schools is never a great thing for a variety of reasons. Learning is only one of them. But they've suffered this learning loss. And what happens is the curriculum doesn't get adjusted to enable, you don't repeat year 5 for somebody who missed it. You just start year 6.
Yeah.
But education is something that builds. One piece of knowledge builds onto the next, onto the next, onto the next. Now, if you miss all of this knowledge, you're expected to go from here and start here. And you missed a whole chunk of stuff. Some kids will be able to do that. Some kids were better supported than others throughout the lockdown. But there's a whole swathe of kids, of young people who didn't have that educational support. And the government recognised this. They've put hundreds of millions of pounds into tutoring over the last 12 months and continue to put tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions, into tutoring. So they know it's a real problem. Yeah. So I saw that opportunity, if you like, to help to do something about that challenge, to help young people. So I think tutoring is a very good business for now. It's a business whereby we can support our communities, and when we get it right, we can make a profit, because it is a business, remember. So why would I do that? One, I want to support our community. I'm big on supporting community. A number of things I do outside of work are about supporting community. But equally, I'm in business. I'm in business because I want to make a profit. I want to provide a nice lifestyle for my family. I've got 2 boys. I want them to have great opportunities. And the world we live in means, financial resources are one of the things that's required to give people great opportunities.
Yeah.
So that's it. I want to build nice businesses which serve our communities well, and which can enable my family and I to live a nice lifestyle.
Yeah, that's really great. That's really well put as well. Sometimes it's easy to just see, growing your empire, so to speak, as just a way to generate more money and more revenue. But actually, you've tied the 2 things together, which I think is really cool. And I completely agree with you on that learning loss. My son is 5, my daughter's 7. I don't think we've seen too much of an impact on her being 7, because she had a lot of those base building blocks in place before the recession hit, in terms of reading, writing, maths and things like this. But my son at the same age, you can see his reading is behind, and we tried hard to do all of the homework, to do all of the reading with him, but we weren't providing however many hours a day that a school does, on focusing on those elements. We had work ourselves to actually be getting on with. I didn't go on furlough or anything like this, and my wife did have some time off, but when you've got 2 of them, it's and all the other duties you have around the house, it's quite a task. So yeah, we're seeing that in our son now. He's just not quite at the same level as my daughter, and there's no difference in terms of their intelligence or their ability to learn. It's just he didn't have that consistent learning environment to be in. Yeah, so I can see real value in that, and that's obviously what School is Easy do, is provide tutors to these young people. But is it home-based, is online? Yeah, how is School is Easy supporting these children with that perhaps learning loss?
Yeah, it's a combination of both, because we're not teachers, right? And as much as we love our kids and as much as we want to do our best for them, we're not teachers. We can't create that environment they have at school, and we haven't got the skills probably to be able to engage with them as an educationalist. Mums and dads, we'll help you with your reading, we'll try and support you with your homework, but we're not educationalists. And so what School is Easy do is to provide a professional, if you like, a professional tutor who can work with them, who understands how to work with them, how to teach, how learning works. So that's what we do. In terms of how we do it, we can do it online and we can do it in home. Now, it really depends on the age of the child as to what may work best. With children, the children that yours are, the age, that your children are, and the age that my children are, probably work better face to face. Because it's difficult to keep them engaged online for long, but face to face they can get some really interesting work, some exciting work, and we can make learning fun. With the older kids, it might be that we do some online, it might be do some offline. It could be either or a bit of both. So it really does depend on the student.
So the face to face, is that in training centres again, or is that going out to the homes? Yeah,
that's in home. But we could do it in a coffee shop, we could do it in the library, but generally it's in home.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting. So as a master franchisee, I take it you're now looking to build out the network of franchisees or owners of the School is Easy business.
Yeah.
How many people are under that brand at the moment? How many franchisees?
So we've currently got 14 territories.
Okay.
So you remember that I joined School is Easy in August 2020, so a little over 12 months ago. And in that time, we've grown to 14 territories in England, Wales, and Scotland. And we're looking to very quickly grow our network to 25, and above and beyond that, the 100 is the magic number. So we've got some very aggressive growth plans, but it's a very, very attractive business. I think for people who haven't considered tutoring yet or looked at what the numbers can look like, it's an incredibly attractive business.
Yeah, so I'm now thinking, okay, that it's not the same as the Pitman side. So you don't necessarily need a center. It can be run from home quite comfortably, but obviously traveling within your local area. What background do these people need to come from? Because I guess for Pitman, I can see that maybe they can come from a management style background and build a team and grow, and they don't necessarily need to be, hands-on training and coaching people. That can be they can employ staff. But School is Easy, I'm guessing that's them on their own pretty much, and they're going to have to go out there to the homes of the families of the children. And do they need to be teachers? I guess if I'm guessing there's got to be some learning involved on how to deliver this tutoring. So yeah, what type of backgrounds do they need to come from?
It's a great question, Ed, and thanks for asking it. The answer is that they don't need to be teachers, but it neither qualifies nor disqualifies them, because we're looking for personality. We're looking for people who have a passion to build their own business, people who've got a passion to make a difference in their community, people who are hardworking, creative, engaging. That's what we're looking for. We don't need the brain of Britain. We need somebody who is absolutely passionate about building a business within our brand, with School is Easy. Somebody who's passionate about making a difference to the young people, and somebody who's able and willing to invest in making that happen. An investment is partly cash, it's partly time, it's creativity, it's relationships, it's influencing, it's all of the things that make a successful business person. So what we want, what we're looking for, who we're looking for, are those people that perhaps want to get out of the 9-to-5 grind. They've had enough of that. Perhaps people want to be based at home. Perhaps it's people who want to make a nest egg, or want to financially secure their family's future. Perhaps it's people who do want to make a difference in their community. But in all of that, it's people who are able to engage with others, build relationships, and somebody who's willing to get in and around people in their community, physically and virtually, to start to make a difference. So you don't have to come from an education background. In fact, most of our franchisees don't.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? What sort of backgrounds do some of your franchisees come from?
So we've got people, in fact, all of them bar one have either run or recently run another business. So most of them have been previous entrepreneurs. So they like the idea of working for themselves, and it's great, because when it works really well, it's fantastic. And then the other, the one who hasn't run her own business before, actually is from an education background. So it neither includes or excludes anybody. It's about the person. It's about what the person wants to achieve, and whether we think we can work together. Yeah, because franchising is a relationship. It's not a boss and employee type of relationship. It's two business people coming together to work together in continuing to build that business. So I've got to think I can work with this person, and they've got to think they can work with me and my team. And when we believe all of that is right, then we can go and we can have a great and successful relationship for sure.
Cool. So with both brands that you're working under, do you still, with Pitman, do you still see the other franchisees? I'm assuming you do with the School is Easy one, as you're working together with them, of course.
Yeah.
But for Pitman, do you still see other franchisees, and do you ever learn anything from them?
Oh, 100%. Just a couple of weeks ago, we had Pitman annual conference actually in London. So there were 100 Pitman colleagues together for 2 days in London. and we were sort of launching the future, if you like. What's going to be different about Pitman in the future than Pitman of the past? So that gave us a tremendous networking opportunity. So that was a brilliant thing to do. And yeah, we do talk. In fact, just half an hour ago, before we started our call, I emailed 3 of my Pitman colleagues with a question on something. I just wanted to get their view on something. So there is that robust support network. There is people who are in the same or a very similar situation to you, and you can just go, guys, tell me about this, or I'm challenged here, or can I have an opinion on something, please? And I put a call into Paul Lewis, who I think you've had on your podcast before, just this morning, because I want to get his opinion on something. And when you're in business absolutely by yourself, not within a franchise brand, there may not be anybody to call. But within a franchise, there's always somebody to call. Somebody who's a bit further down the line than you, somebody who's done something you haven't, or somebody whose opinion you value. And so, I've been doing that very thing this morning.
Yeah, so that leads me to sort of wonder, was it that reason why you didn't try and set up on your own from scratch? Because you talk about those other entrepreneurs within School is Easy, and yourself seem pretty entrepreneurial as well. So isn't there something within you, and why didn't you kind of try and build something from scratch? I could imagine you could do that successfully. So why not do that? And why are these other entrepreneurs not going out and then building their own tutor business?
It's that blueprint for success. I think one of the things with Pitman Training particularly, because I've always been interested and engaged in the world of training, but one of the things with training is when you're writing content, you're not delivering it. When you're delivering content, you're not selling it. And when you're selling content, you're not writing it. So it's very much, you can only wear one hat at a time, albeit you have to have lots of different hats. With Pitman, the product is written by our product team, and it's brilliant. A lot of marketing happens with our marketing team. Now, of course, we do more locally, but a lot of marketing happens centrally as well, which meant that certainly in the early days, I could come in and focus on finding customers. And that was absolutely massive for me. And I think if I'd have gone on and done it on my own, so to speak, I wouldn't have anywhere near the level of success we enjoy at the moment, I don't think, because I wouldn't have had the time to invest in finding customers. Yeah. And so for me, it was the power of the brand and the support of the team around me, the head office team, if you like, that heavily contributed to my success in Pitman. And I believe that's one of the things that contributes and will continue to contribute to the success of our School is Easy partners, is they're not on their own. We are with them. We are doing with them, enabling them to focus more on going out and developing relationships.
Yeah, that's cool. So school is easy then. I'm curious to find out how it started. Obviously you didn't start the brand from scratch yourself, but I wonder if you probably know the kind of founder's story and why it was developed and where it was developed, because I'm guessing it didn't start in the UK.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. It started in Vancouver in Canada, and the lady who founded School is Easy is a lady named Susan Cumberland. And she saw an opportunity there in Vancouver for people who needed extra tutoring help, and she came herself from an education background and started to help students with tutoring. And then she got busy, and then she thought, I need some other people to help me with this tutoring. I've got too many students, and so started recruiting tutors. And actually then found she was spending her time on matching tutors and students more so than doing any tutoring herself. So she saw the business opportunity in that. And having grown that business to a certain size, then elected to sell it to Launch Life International, who've continued to grow that business quite substantially since they took over from Susan. And Susan's still engaged with the business. She's a master franchisee actually for California in the United States, as well as running some territories still in Vancouver.
Cool. That's good. And I guess it's just quite organic growth, really, isn't it? In those early days, and I guess with the power of a large brand like Launch Life behind it, it's it's going to be pretty stable. There's going to be processes that are put in place that they've experienced from other brands within their network. And I've heard of these types of brands before that own multiple different franchises or different brands underneath them. But there's not so many that just focusing on one core area, and education, I guess, is quite an important one. So I guess anybody that's coming into the School is Easy brands, if they are quite entrepreneurial like yourself and think, actually, I want to look at other opportunities to develop wealth for myself and to have a bigger impact on my local community, is it easy for them to kind of go across the different brands and find, you know, a way to operate both of them at the same time?
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got a couple of partners who do operate Pitman and School is Easy, you know, and all the time are growing their businesses. So it's possible. The advice I would give is get one right and then take another one on, if that's what you want to do. So you're not juggling too many balls. You get your systems, your processes, your team, etc., correct in whatever brand you choose to go with first. And then, sure, we can look at another one. It's entirely possible. You see, I'm not the brightest, I'm not the richest, I'm not the most intelligent, I'm not the hardest working, I'm not the most creative of anything. When I look across Pitman and School is Easy, I can spot people who are more effective than me. I am courageous. I will have a go. I do believe in myself. And that's what I want from people around us. So if somebody comes along and says, you know what, Chris, I'm ambitious. I want to build 6 territories with School is Easy, or I want 3 or 4 Pitman training centers. I'm like, yeah, absolutely, you can do it, because I've done it. And, you know, just a regular guy who believes in himself, and develops relationships and finds ways to get support. So absolutely, people can do it.
Fantastic. Look, I'm conscious of time a little bit now, so I want to sort of dig into a few other questions that I always ask everybody. So my first one is, I'm always looking to try and find funny, strange, or weird stories. So I'm wondering if you have any in your career that you'd be happy to share with us.
Yeah, I got a really cool one, actually. It was when I worked at West Bromwich Building Society. So one of the things that, you know, life is rich with experiences. Life is just experiences. It's not gadgets. It's not things. It's experiences and memories. And we try to create memories for people. And I remember one day we were in Chester, and we'd been there for a conference, a number of staff, and we went out for dinner, and we just went somewhere like Zzz's, right? So we're in Zzz's. I think there was 4 of us, and it was one of the ladies, it was a birthday. It was Sam's birthday. And I thought to myself, how are we going to make this memorable for Sam? So we could have done the cake thing. In fact, I think we did get a cake. But when the cake came out, I said to the waiter or waitress, just give me a nod or a wink. Let me know when you're about to bring the cake out. Right, okay, what are you going to do? You'll see. So they got to the door with the cake, and Sam's sitting opposite me, and the waitress or the waiter's behind her. So, here's the cake. I said, all right, hang on. I stood up on my chair and I shouted to the whole restaurant, everybody, it's Sam's birthday. We're going to bring her cake out. Can everybody stand up and sing happy birthday with us? And so we got this whole restaurant, and it was packed. We got this whole restaurant standing up and singing happy birthday to Sam as the cake came out. And that just sticks in my mind, and I'm sure it sticks in hers too.
I bet she was really embarrassed.
Just a little, maybe. But what a really cool thing to be able to do for her. So she remembers that birthday and remembers it well, I'm sure.
Yeah, amazing. But that just shows your courageousness once again, because I don't think many people would be like, let's just get the whole restaurant, to get up and start singing. Like, you know, most people just do it in their corner, don't they, and have a little happy birthday, and you're up on that chair. Yeah, it's interesting when I hear these stories. You get a little glimpse into the person's personality as well. That I asked that question to, and yeah, I think that really
this is about creating memories for them. This is about them. You know, if I have to embarrass myself a little bit by standing up, well, so be it. But didn't she have a great experience?
Yeah, awesome. That sounds great. Fantastic. So, my next question is, any proud or inspiring moments that you've had in your career?
Do you know, I'm really proud to to have been able to build up a network of 8 Pitman centres. Because when I started out with Pitman, I'll be honest, I didn't really know where I was going to go with it. I knew that I wanted to build a business which would make a difference to me and my family. I didn't know it would lead me to building 8 centres. I'm very proud to be selected as the master franchisee for Great Britain. And selection is really the word, by the way, because when a brand is looking to build in a new country or territory, they have to partner with somebody they believe in. And so my relationship with Launch Life is strong. They see what I've done with the Pitman business and believe that I can do good things with School is Easy too, with my team. So I'm very proud to have been selected as a master franchisee. So they're probably the 2 standout ones around how we've successfully built the business so far. We're not done yet, but we're on the way.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome, really, isn't it? You know, from those early days where you're on the phone trying to pick up clients, and I guess, you know, that was pretty difficult and nerve-wracking. You know, is it going to work or not? You've invested some time and money into it to be able to look at it now and see what you're achieving and the lives that you're impacting through the work that you're doing. I think is pretty awesome, and you rightly should be proud for that. So that's pretty cool.
And I was proud when for the first time we hit our seven figures turnover, if that makes sense. And I know that turnover is vanity and profit is sanity. I totally get that. But when we turned over 7 figures for the first time, I was like, cool, yeah, we did.
Did you get up in a restaurant and celebrate?
No, because I think that it would sound a little bit like gloating, maybe. And I'm not in for that. But I think I just sort of nodded to myself and thought, yeah, that's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, that's your part of your personality, of course, as well. Is, you know, you're more about doing those sorts of things for other people. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's cool. And then the final one. So anybody who perhaps was like yourself and wanting to get away from that 9-to-5 grind and set up a business on their own, and you know, they're potentially looking at franchise businesses, what would be your one piece of advice to them, or main piece of advice to them?
My main piece of advice would be to find somebody who's a BFA member. So if you know you're going franchise, whatever the franchise might be, it could be School is Easy, brilliant. It could be Pitman, brilliant. I'll happily talk to you about it. But if it's lawn care, or if it's pet care, or whatever it might be, just find somebody who's a member of the BFA, the British Franchise Association, because they're a great standard, a great hallmark, if you like, of quality. And they make people jump through hoops to become registered with them as far as the franchise all goes. So yeah, make sure they're BFA members.
So I take it you're involved with them nowadays.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely right. In fact, we'll be at the conference. I think the conference is at the end of November, so we'll be there as well. So if anybody is listening, I would love to say hi. Do come along and say hi if you're attending too.
Awesome. Chris, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate getting to know you better, learning your story with Pitman and School is Easy, and looking forward to seeing what you do with the brands for the future. So good luck with that, and thanks again for your time.
You're very welcome. Ed, is it perhaps I could share that we've got a webinar coming up for School is Easy. It's like a discovery webinar. And if any of your listeners wanted to join in on the discovery webinar, if they head to schooliseasy.com, they should be able to find out details of when that webinar is, or find us on Facebook or LinkedIn, and then you'll see me and some of my colleagues talking about that School is Easy opportunity, if indeed they're interested.
Of course, I'll put a link in the show notes, and yeah, people can find that detail there. So again, thank you so much for your time, and have a good day.
You're welcome. Thanks, Ed.
Take care.